Here.
Ms. Fox and Mr. Stein are excused.
Thank you. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from November 28th, 2022.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any changes, corrections?
I have
See-
a couple.
You have a couple.
I received an email from Ms. Fox with a couple edits as it pertained to a couple of her items. So specifically as it referenced the Monona Grove School Board following Robert's rules, just wanted to add, and I have this language here, but taken out of order, provided the option is on the agenda, moved and voted on. And additionally, there was a typo on page 5, item D, fourth line, should read formal consideration, and it at this point just says formal consider. So I have those two and can add those in.
Okay, great. That being the case, all those in favor of approval of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
The minutes carry. Number 4 is order of business. And I would like to move that we move items number I and J, which are the public hearing on the request by the Madison Brain Center, in consideration of action on the request by the Madison Brain Center, up to above the request up above E, which is to say above the request from Lake Ridge Bank. I'm just going to shift the order a little bit with the intention of giving a commission member a break early. So with that, I'd like to, there is no unfinished business. Oh, do we have to vote on moving that up, or
Unless there is disagreement.
is there any disagreement with that? Okay,
No.
great. Then we're good. Then there is no unfinished business. Number 7A, public hearing on the request by Liercy Company, represented by Raposa Design, for approval of a zoning permit for exterior improvements and a new tenant, Five Below at 2351 West Broadway, case number 2-033-2022. This is your opportunity to share. The public hearing is the applicant's opportunity to share with us about the request.
Sure. Thank you. This is Russ Raposa. Liercy Company is proposing to fill what was the old Hobby Lobby space. They right now have two tenants that are looking to move into the space, Michaels and Five Below. And in that request, they are looking to put up new facades for both tenants, as seen in the packet. The Five Below is the old Hobby Lobby signage background. They'll be adding a blue ethos element to it, as that's their national brand color. And then they are, Michaels is looking to add on a new addition sign band to the west of the Five Below, kind of seen in the packet. That will be of masonry and ethos, and would be basically what Michaels uses as their kind of mimics their national standard for their front elevation. Also included with this packet is some improvements to the parking field. Right now, the way that this piece of parcel is cut up, there is not much in terms of parking that is directly attached to this land, but in that area we are adding some landscape islands to break up the asphalt. Obviously we asked for some the ability to not adhere to the city's landscape ordinance just because obviously we don't have the land attached to it to be able to do that. So we are improving what is on our land, adding islands to match what happened over at Floors and More, and really just trying to green up the parking field a little bit more. Again, the overall parking is shared access between all of the storefronts, so obviously the numbers of parking stalls will be accommodated by the cross parking easement that's in the overall shopping center. And again, we're looking to add a third tenant, future tenant, so we don't have who that is now. We show what we think we'll do for a sign ban. If that tenant happens to change for some reason and something changes on that, we would obviously come back to the city for approval on what their sign pediment would be, including adding glazing to that area.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to present on behalf of this particular request? Okay, then that being the case, we'll close the public hearing and move to item number 7B, consideration of action on the request by a real estate company represented by Proposa Design and for approval and zoning permit for exterior improvements and a new tenant, Five Below, at 2351 West Broadway, case number 2-033-2022. Before I turn it over to Doug, I just want to say, with respect to the documents provided to us, we very much appreciate the full-scale documents that are in front of us tonight. We can read them and read the print without a magnifying glass, and we're very appreciative of that detail. Thank you. Go ahead, Doug.
Well,
Thank you. So as mentioned, the application here is proposed modifications to the former Hobby Lobby space located at 2351 West Broadway. The improvements include the division of the space into 3 tenant storefronts, as well as facade and parking lot improvements. 2 tenants have signed letters of intent, LOIs, and the applicant requests consideration of both the improvements and the new uses at this meeting. There'll definitely be some overlap between these 2 applications. Many of the site improvements apply to both of them, so I'll run through it with this, and certainly the second application will be a little lighter. So this zoning permit is for Five Below, which plans to occupy just over 9,500 square feet of space, a national discount retailer specializing in products under $5. Proposed hours here would be 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, with 8 employees expected at the largest shift. The property is zoned Community Design District, CDD, and a zoning permit is required for the new construction, as well as if the use has been discontinued for 6 months or more. As far as the land use and zoning, the 2016 comprehensive plan discusses the Southtown area as including big box retailers and smaller national retail and restaurant businesses. Additionally, the current and future land use maps show this as commercial in use. Regarding parking, the standards of the zoning code require 1 parking space for each 300 square feet of gross floor area. The tenant space at just over 9,500 square feet is required to have 32 stalls. Please note that the total of the three proposed spaces here is just over 31,500 square feet, which would require 106 stalls, assuming commercial spaces across all, which would be 12 below what is provided, although there is significant parking at the center, and as already mentioned, there is a cross-parking agreement. The parking lot itself is in decent condition and did not appear in immediate need of resurfacing at a site visit last week. In terms of operation, the hours are very similar to adjacent tenants, Dollar Tree and Kohl's, to name just a couple. The deliveries would be through a 6-foot pair of doors at the back of the building, although the access is not immediately clear. There is some void space there between the rear of the building and the proposed build-out. They would use the existing dumpster at the back of the building, and the Commission may just choose to double-check some of these operational elements for this tenant space. No changes to the lighting are proposed at this point. There is 1 existing light pole within the area of work, although there are a number of additional lights just outside of the parcel along both the east and the west, providing lighting into the site itself. In terms of landscaping, the application proposes the addition of 3 new tree islands, which would lead to the removal of 5 parking stalls. With the 94 stalls total that are shown, the site would need to have 1,410 landscaping points and 8 canopy trees. As shown, the plan includes 8 trees, 4 new and 4 existing, as well as a total of 672 landscaping points. The applicant seeks an exception from the standards given the limited area within the parcel boundaries, because again, as noted, to the east and west, there are much larger existing landscaping areas just outside of the property lines. As far as the signage, the application included conceptual renderings for this, but did not include a formal request. Some dimensions were included, though, and the Commission may choose to just give some feedback on that. It's likely that signage would need to return to the Plan Commission again for formal consideration, but some direction there may be helpful to the applicant. With that, staff recommendation is approval of the zoning permit with the 3 listed conditions as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Brendan, would you like to start?
In terms of the issue of the landscaping points, I think my opinion is that if we want to see that area more stimulated, more activity there, I think that I think it's important for us to hold on to as many landscaping points as possible. And if there's anywhere that's got too much parking in town, it's that whole South Town area. So I'm not nearly as concerned about the exceptions as it relates to the parking. I would advocate for ensuring that we get as much landscaping as they're talking about, if not trying to push for additional landscaping. It'll help not only their property, I think it would have a virtuous effect on other businesses that may want to come to that area for what it's zoned for. That's maybe my one and only point.
Okay, great. Brian?
I would agree with the same comment regarding landscaping. I went over there, and some of the trees, and I see that some of them are identified outside of this parcel. And I'm assuming that the dark line on our landscaping plan is the property line. Is that true?
It is.
Okay. So the property line cuts through the middle of parking stalls?
Yeah.
Okay. Because 2 of those trees on the far west side, 2 of the trees on the west side have been removed. One of the trees on the north island that is being counted is actually gone. It's not there. And some of the other islands, although it wasn't clear to figure out how much landscaping currently exists in some of these existing islands. But I would agree with the comment overall. The islands that are there need to be adequately landscaped, but we will fall short of the points, I believe. I know we can't tie this existing item to these 2 missing trees on that western side. I'm not sure if those are set to be replaced anyways, but they were recently cut out. And that's all I have.
All right. Chris, number 1.
I just want to reiterate what my first 2 fellow commissioners said, and I guess I would say that if they're required to have 1,410 landscaping points, they're at 672 points, which is, that's less than half of the requirements. So I'd like to see something more. It's such a massive piece of pavement over there. It's huge, and it's a shame to not add a little more landscaping. So.
Okay, great. Corinne?
I'm excited to have this proposal in front of us, first of all, and as far as the parking and lot improvements, I'm not concerned about the stalls, just because I know people park at one of the stores and they walk to another store, so I think that's fine. I would encourage you to consider the lot repaving. I drove over there, and it's not as terrible as the other one was, but there's a lot of, it just looked like it's starting to wear out kind of where the drainage was happening. So I don't know, it might be something just to take a look at. You're going to have these nice new stores, and the parking lot won't be as reflective as how the rest of the building is going to look once you're done with the improvements. So that's just something to consider. As far as the landscaping, you know, these sites are confusing to me a little bit because I don't know who owns what. So it looks like the building with where the 3 stores, that this one, the western part of the parking lot is that owned by the owners of Floor and Decor? Okay. Did they have landscaping there that they haven't put in on that part of it?
Yes, that portion that I believe you're referencing just east of
Yeah.
the parking.
East, sorry.
That's being considered tonight. That was part of the improvements for the white box tenant space that was approved but has yet to be implemented. So they were putting in tree islands, and those plans were shared with the applicant as well.
Okay, so there will be more landscaping in this strip here. Okay, so then who's the owner of this strip? Is that the Coles and?
I believe that is
You can't
also
see that.
the applicant again, that they own the space immediately to the west.
Okay.
That would be David Israel, and he's on
Okay.
Zoom right now. He's the
All right.
owner of the project.
Okay, so David, would there be a way to put in more landscaping in the western, I don't know what to call it, that borders where the drive-in is? So that would be an opportunity to gain some additional landscaping points, perhaps. Right now, it's just showing 4 trees, but there's other space there, so maybe there's a way to put some additional landscaping in that spot.
That piece that you're talking about is Coles. Coles owns that parcel over there. It is kind of interesting when we bought this piece, I don't know, maybe close to 10 years already. The Shopko piece, or now which Floor and Decor, own a tremendous amount of the parking lot, and Coles owns a tremendous amount of the parking lot. And we just have this small strip in the middle that we own. So, and I can't speak to what Coles will do. We have a good relationship with them. We can certainly ask them to see if they will do something for it. But I can't go in and improve their space legally without their approval.
Okay, so they own all the way through that drive then?
They own all the way through their drive to their building, right? We own basically from the Planet Fitness, the Dollar Tree, the Hobby Lobby, and the Hockey Giant. That's our building that we own. Floor and Decor and the vacant building, the old Chapo building, and Coles owns the rest of it.
Yeah, what I was pointing at is so there's the drive-in that
Right.
comes in, and there's the landscape island to the east. And it
Yes.
does look like it's outside of your property line, so that you do not own.
We do not own.
Okay. All right. I guess one question I had, when I was looking at the pictures, the trees look like they're blocking where you want to put the sign for Michael's. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
so with the Michaels, the building steps back, and in order to get that facade, if you look at the kind of the plan in front of the proposed Michaels, that we're bringing that facade out a little bit and then actually going back after the building steps back. So one of those trees that is there will have to be removed, which is the one that you're saying looks like it's infringing upon. That will have to come out because that will be where the facade is for Michaels. So
okay.
that larger tree to the right will definitely be taken down for the construction. And then on the left-hand side of the Hobby Lobby, that picture, again, because we're going to be putting a facade there, and opening that up for the tenant, those trees will, again, have to be removed.
Okay. Well, on your plan, you're showing on the landscaping plan, you're showing them as existing trees still in your plan, so I don't know if you're gonna.
Those, there's nothing in terms of landscaping on that. That's up against the building.
Oh, they are, okay.
So, yeah, those are up against the building. So the big tree that's, let's say, in front of Michael's is just south of where it says concrete walk, to the left of the canopy. So I dashed in where their canopy is gonna go. So that is just south of that concrete walk. And then on the other side of that, where the third tenant's gonna go, where that 26.9 dimension is, that's landscaped in there.
Okay. Okay, all right. And then, let's see. I don't have any other questions. I think the facade improvements would look great too, the way you have them rendered, and really bring some additional freshness to the small area. Oh, I guess I have one question, and it's not specific to this application, but it's about the sign for the mall. David, is that something that has been discussed to update there's the blue, really old blue Southtown Mall sign?
Yeah, it hasn't been a discussion, but it's something that I want to do. When we finalize the next 3 tenants, hopefully we're in lease negotiation. The lease is already being negotiated between Michael's and Five Below. We do have an interested party for the other balance of the space. Once we finalize those, we will try and come up with a new monument sign, because this monument sign does nothing. It's really,
Yeah.
I mean, when we bought the property, it was there, and we really didn't have to do anything when Hopflun's Hobby Lobby was there. But it definitely has to be updated. It's not a very appealing sign as it stands right now.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's it.
Okay, great. Chris Homburg. Can you,
There we go. I was trying to unmute Doug Baum, but it didn't work. First, thanks for bringing these retail uses back in. I think it's great. I think it's a good use for the center, and love seeing them. I have zero issues with the parking. There's plenty of parking on that site to have cross parking. I know some of the stalls you have actually get used up by the restaurants that are north of you, but it all works out. I haven't seen an area where it doesn't work. I agree with the landscaping comments. I would suggest, if you have a really good relationship with Kohl's, just ask them to plant a few trees on that north-south island that's right between your properties. That would go a long ways, and then just look at around the front of the building. It looks like there's still a couple areas maybe we could do something. I would suggest we would just leave a condition that staff work out the final landscaping with the applicant. I think, Doug, you threw me for a loop. You had 4 items, a public hearing, and then the action item that had exactly the same thing on it. I think, what the heck's going on here? And so finally I figured out it's 2 different buildings, but what keyed me was they both have the same address. So I think we need to check with police and fire, possibly public works, but we're going to need to assign separate addresses, I'm sure, for each business. And I think, as well as that, we need to check with police and fire and see where and excuse me, what size they might want to see that address on those buildings so they can find them if they need to, but we can't leave them all with the same address.
Agreed. Thanks.
And really, that's it for me. I think this is great. I appreciate you bringing it in.
We're happy to bring it up, believe me.
yeah. Yeah, I would just echo that. David, I know that they've been vacant for a bit, and I'm sure this is an exciting turn for you. So, and I apologize for misspeaking about the Kohl's. I thought that yeah, Chris.
I'm sorry. You can finish. I just have one more item.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay, I'll go, since I interrupted you, I'm sorry. The signs are too big on both buildings, they're huge, and they don't need to be that big, so I think they gotta be shrunk down quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just to kind of chime in on that, the retailers will come in with their own sign packages for the building. They were shown for, just obviously to give you guys an idea of what was going on, and then their sign people will adhere to your ordinance and size and scale, and they'll be the ones that address that specifically.
Sure, just for your reference, actually I have one more referencing I could do, but just for your reference, the Hobby Lobby was granted exception to be a little bigger because they were such a large parcel. We considered them a anchor tenant and gave them a little bit taller letter, but the ones that are drawn on there right now are much bigger than even that. And then the other reference that might help some of the commissioners make some sense about this, when the original developer developed this mall, like any developer, he was watching out for himself. So when he sold to Kohl's and he sold to Shopko, he sold all the parking lot he could to both of those so that they'd be responsible for maintenance. And they like controlling it because they want to control parking stalls. That's key to them, is controlling parking stalls. So this was done in a mutually beneficial way, that the developer had very few stalls and lighting, landscaping, anything to maintain, where Kohl's and Shopko, or now the Dorn property, have the majority of the parking to maintain.
Great. Thank you. Chris, anything else? Okay. So with that, as I said, David, this is great. I think it's great as well. I share the commission's concerns over the volume of landscaping, and I would just ask, it comes back to staff as suggested, that it also be, since we don't have our landscaping expert here tonight, I would just say, to be careful that you're planting, obviously, trees that are not only going to be hardy but native, and since we're obviously talking about trees that are no longer there, obviously the investment in native trees and hardy trees, obviously, given that it's a wide open area, would be important. Otherwise, I'm good. Anything else from the commission? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move approval with the conditions stated by staff.
Okay.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there anything?
No, I'd suggest add four.
Yeah, do you want to add a motion around the landscaping?
Well, did you want to make?
I was just going to suggest that the final landscaping plans be approved by staff.
Yes.
You would have to add it.
Oh, yeah. Fine. Yes, I'll add
With a
that.
condition number
Friendly,
4, that the landscaping plans, final landscaping plans,
approved by staff.
approved by staff. All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second? And Chris, you agree with the addition? Okay, great. I have a motion and a second. Anything else?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Perhaps it'd be appropriate to add another condition that the individual units need to have a reassigned address, and the city, you could say the police or fire, will determine how big and where that address needs to be shown.
Are you
Okay.
Are you good
Yes.
with that? Okay, so that's condition number 5. Accepted. Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Great. Thank you. We'll move
Thank you.
quickly to now public hearing on the request. Again, we realize these are close. In that, so we have a public hearing on the request by Learcy Company, represented by Raposa Design, for approval of zoning permit for exterior improvements on a new tenant, Michaels, at 2351 West Broadway, case number 2-034-2022. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the Michaels site as opposed to what we just discussed for Five Below
No,
as part of the public hearing?
no.
No? Okay. Then, assuming there's no one else here to speak to this, we'll, to this particular proposal, we'll close the public hearing and go to consideration of action on the request by Learcy Company, represented by Raposa Design, for approval of a zoning permit for exterior improvements and new tenant Michaels at 2351 West Broadway, case number 2-034-2022. Doug?
Thanks. I will keep this brief, as promised. So Michaels has signed an LOI for the space. The plan is to occupy just over 15,000 square feet of the space. Michaels is a national arts and crafts store. The plan here would be to occupy the westernmost of the 3 tenant spaces at the former 2351 West Broadway, as well as to construct a new entryway and canopy. As far as parking, it would be required at the 1 per 300 standard to have 51 stalls. As part of the improvements, the new entryway would be constructed primarily of ephes with fluted CMU at the base. Dark bronze anodized storefront elements are also shown, which would tie in with adjacent uses at the space. The same operating hours are proposed daily from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. With 15 employees at the busiest shift. This tenant would rent space through to the rear of the building, receive deliveries daily, using the existing loading dock as well as trash compactor at the back of the building. Nothing else from staff to add other than recommend approval with the 3 conditions as listed in the staff report.
With that, I will once again open it up to the commission. We'll start at this end. Chris Homburg, do you want to start?
Sure, no additional concerns or conditions. I would just recommend the same conditions as the first approval.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me. Corey?
Nothing further.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Brian?
Nothing new.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely nothing new? Okay. Just out of curiosity, since this one goes back to, goes back all the way back with the loading dock, I know that with Floor and Decor, we had some requirements about the back pavement, and was that, were those requirements, did they go all the way across the building, or did they just go, and what does the rest of the back look like in terms of?
I'm not sure about the condition. I know specifically behind Shopko, and the former Shopko was the most challenging. I did not receive any comments from police or fire about that, so, but I honestly couldn't say confidently the current condition of that. I see
Okay.
Chris and David.
Yeah, Chris?
This pavement, excuse me, isn't perfect, but it's much better than what the Floor and Decor was. Floor and Decor was a hazard to get back to everyone, and this pavement's passable. We'll need some work at some point in time, but it's not at all what the Shopko pavement was.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't able to drive back there today. David? Israel, do you have your hand up?
No,
No.
I do, but I don't.
Okay, okay,
I'm
great.
good.
Okay, so, do I have a motion?
I'll move approval with the additional 2 items that were on the previous item.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Motion carries. Thanks very much, gents. Appreciate it. Again,
Thank you.
congrats. Welcome to Monona.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your help. Appreciate it.
Okay, with that, we're going to move to with a change of order, we're going to move to number I, public hearing on the request by Madison Brain Center for approval of new signage at 2001 West Broadway, Suite 1, case number S-022-2022. Welcome.
Hello.
Yeah, it's you are up. The public hearing is all yours to present whatever you'd like as it relates to this application this evening.
I just was requesting that I get I get permits to put 2 signs up on one on the front facade and one on the east side of the building. And I didn't know I was supposed to do anything. I sent the information to Doug, so I've never done this before.
Okay,
And
that's fine.
And I thought my signage person was going to be doing it, because notoriously in the signage business, the people who do that do it, but my graphic designer sign developer said, no, you have to do it. So I'm clueless.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know what it looks like. I know what everything is there. I mean, but I don't know what you want me to say or do. So.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate your candor. You know, we won't make you do a dance or anything. I just wanted to make sure if you had something you wanted to say.
I sing and dance.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much. Is there anybody else here that to speak on this particular hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to item number J, consideration of action on the request by Madison Brain Center for approval of new signage at 2001 West Broadway, Suite 1, case number S-022-2022.
Thank you. So Madison Brain Center is requesting 2 new wall signs. This building, 2001 West Broadway, is located within the Community Design District. According to the sign code, each site is allowed 1 wall sign on each building facade that abuts a public street frontage. The building fronts both Gisholt Drive to the west and West Broadway Frontage Road to the north. The applicant is located at the northeast corner of the building, and the space abuts West Broadway Frontage Road. In terms of the facade length and the square footage and size of the signs, both appear to comply, given the size of the building. The sign itself would be making use of an existing aluminum cabinet with LED lighting that was there from a former tenant, which would be refaced with a vinyl panel. Wall sign 1 is proposed for the north facade and parallel to the frontage road. It would be to the right of the main entrance and not centered above the applicant's space. Wall sign 2 is proposed for the east facade, which is parallel to the building's exit drive. While it does not face a public street, it is visible from westbound West Broadway, and it would be at the corner of the building, centered above the applicant's space. The building does provide tenant signage on each of the building's facades, with a couple examples listed in the staff report of how that works. City staff did coordinate with the building owner on this request as well, and the applicant occupies 3,200 square feet of the 10,800 square foot building, and these 2 signs have been associated with this space, I think, for about 30 years. And this application has his full support. Earlier this year, 2022, the Commission did consider another sign permit application for Premier Labor in the same building. 2 signs were approved, one facing north and the second on the same facade as the entry of the business. And these standards appear to align with the Madison Brain Center's application. With that, the recommendation is approval with the finding of fact and 2 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you. Brian Holmquist, would you like to say?
Sure. I have no concerns with these signs. I think it's not moving the cabinets, it's keeping the cabinets in the current location. So I don't have the concern of it not being aligned on the one side, and see it as just a replacement to what exists.
Thank you. Brendan?
Nope, I'm good. No comment.
Great. Chris?
No concerns.
Okay. Cory?
No concerns.
Okay. Chris Omberg?
One question, the north sign, that existing cabinet sign has somebody else's sign in it right now, am I correct? And you're going to replace that, reface it with yours?
No, we're going to be to the right of that. There's an empty sign. There's an empty sign box. For some reason, they're switched around and have been for years. So
just to confirm, we're not adding any more signs to the building?
No.
In 2 existing cabinets?
yeah, we're even going to make it look pretty for once in a while now.
Just wanted to clarify that. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll take a motion.
I will move approval with the finding of fact and the conditions of approval as stated by staff.
I'll second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Wasn't that bad, was it? Welcome, thank you.
Oh, thank
We
you,
look forward to
everybody.
seeing your beautiful new sign.
Yep, freshen up the face of that building.
It's going to look sharp.
Okay, I can go? Thank
There you
you.
go.
Yep.
You're good.
Good.
New landscaping, new signs.
Okay, that takes us back to item number E, public hearing on the request by Lake Ridge Bank, represented by Sign Art Studio, for approval of new signage at 5515 Monona Drive, case number S-020-2022. Chris?
I have to abstain on these next two items.
Yep.
Okay.
Save your voice, thank you. Go ahead. I'm presenting for this particular item in this public hearing for Lake Ridge Bank.
Yes, so my name's Drew. I'm with Sign Art Studio, and we are proposing replacement sign package for what is currently Monona Bank, updating it to the new branding Lake Ridge Bank. This includes...
Camera's off.
Oh, I apologize. Excuse me. I'm sorry, is it working?
That's just a black screen.
Okay, I apologize. Let me see what I'm doing here. Okay, I got it. I apologize for that. Technical
That's right.
issues. All right, so we're proposing like I said, a like-for-like replacement for a sign package for what is currently Monona Bank, updating it to Lake Ridge Bank. We did create an entire sign family that's going across multiple locations, and we pulled branding from that sign family and brought it into these two proposed locations. I apologize. Are we starting with the Monona Drive location or the Bridge Road location?
Bridge Road.
Bridge Road. All right. Thank you very much. So
I'm
for the
sorry.
Bridge Road.
Monona Drive. My apologies.
Yeah, it's the
Sorry
Monona
about
Drive.
that. Okay. Sorry, Monona Drive. All right, perfect. So for Monona Drive, we are proposing a 3-wall sign replacement. That would include 2 non-illuminated wall signs replaced with 2 non-illuminated wall signs. 1 illuminated wall sign replaced with an illuminated wall sign. They're all 3 proposed as cabinets. The illuminated wall sign is an aluminum cabinet with push-through letters. All of these are mounted to ACM backers. It's just aluminum with a wood grain aesthetic. All of the colors are a blue, a white, and with keeping with kind of the nature thing, we've got that wood grain against that aluminum backer. That covers the 3 replacement wall signs. We are replacing a ground sign cabinet as well, mounted to an existing masonry base. The base structure is going to remain as is. We're just simply removing the existing illuminated cabinet and installing a new illuminated cabinet. It is an ACM structure, that same wood grain finish, with aluminum cabinets and with a halo lit effect mounted to that aluminum structure. Setbacks are going to remain exactly the same regarding that ground sign. We are also replacing 2 directional signs for like-for-like location replacement. These are just post and panel signs within the 4 square feet of allowable area. And then we are adding we are asking to add 1 additional illuminated wall sign. This is a logo sign. This is mounted on the east elevation, directly above, not directly above, but in the high points of that elevation above where the proposed illuminated wall cabinet is going to be.
Great. Thank you. With that, we'll, unless somebody else wants to speak on this Monona Drive proposal, we'll close the public hearing and go to consideration of action on the request by Lake Ridge Bank, represented by Sign Art Studio, for approval of new signage at 5515 Monona Drive, case number S-0202022. Doug?
Thank you. So the request here is for 5515 Monona Drive. The zoning for the property is retail business. It's also along the Monona Drive corridor and subject to the urban design guidelines. Property faces on both Monona Drive and Panther Trail to the south. In terms of the signage, there are a couple signs that would be similar in their design and their illumination. The south facade is looking at an 11.6 square foot sign, which would be a reduction from the current non-illuminated sign. That would be the same on the north facade as well. This, on the north, worth noting, is that it is a wall sign on a facade that does not abut a public street, but it would provide visibility to southbound traffic, and so the Commission may consider an exception. Additionally, the existing sign that is in that location was granted an exception in August of 2017. Wall signage on the east is the only wall signage that's proposed to be illuminated. 17.7 square foot halo illuminated cabinet sign, which again is a decrease of about 11 square feet from the existing sign. And then the new request, wall sign 4, would be that second sign in the peak. It is above the lowest edge of the lowest roof edge along the facade, which is not typical with the code, but it does help improve building identification, especially when considering that sign 3 is set back under the roof overhang and is fairly hidden. Again, for context, the Commission did grant an exception for a second logo wall sign to the Summit Credit Union at 5809 Monona Drive, again in 2017. Worth noting, the combined size of all of the signage on the east facade is 34.7 square feet, which again is a reduction cumulatively from the previous approvals that were just about 53 square feet in total. As far as the landscape ground sign, it would just be a refacing of the cabinet itself. The masonry elements would remain. The design of it itself is actually a reduction. There are just some nuances there with how the measurements are taken, but again, it is in keeping with the rest of the design. Directional signs, on-site directional signs, these would be non-illuminated. There would be a reduction from 3 to 2, and these would help with on-site wayfinding for the property. With that, recommendation of staff is approval with the 3 findings of fact and the 2 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Chris, since there's an illumination, would you like to start us off on this one?
Yes, I'd like to start by saying it's going to be hard for me to switch to calling this Monona Bank, and I'll probably still call it Monona Bank for quite a while, but at any rate, I think the logo looks good, the signs look good. I really appreciate this really comprehensive packet with all the mock-ups and renderings and whatnot. We're seeing a lot of reductions, so I see no reason to, I have no issues really. With respect to the exception for the illuminated logo at the peak, I think that'll look really sharp, so I'm okay with that. And then I think the reason Nancy chose me is I often take issue with color temperature of illuminated signs, so my question to Sign Art would be, could you tell us what sort of color temperature you'll be using to illuminate the signs?
I'm sorry, I don't actually know the answer to that question, but that is information I can definitely get to you.
Okay, I mean, the reason I ask is I like to see warm color temperatures, especially when we're close to, the street, so that
Sure.
people don't get, kind of blinded with really cool, bright white light.
Sure. No, I think traditionally, I think we do use a softer white, but with the vibrancy of this vinyl, I do just want to get clarification on that for you.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Okay, Corey?
I think these look great. I think having that logo sign is important. When I was looking at this in the first place, I was thinking, ooh, you know what, before I even got to the picture of the logo, it was too small underneath that overhang, so I was glad then to see the logo sign. So an exception is definitely warranted there. And then my only question was, Doug, you said that the vision triangle isn't going to be impacted, even though the ground sign is going to be, I think, looks like about a foot longer. Maybe not quite.
Yeah, I would say that is just owing to the existing location, just the setbacks that it already has, that it's outside of that location.
But I think it looks great.
Okay. Brian?
I have no concerns when I was looking at the wall sign 4, which is the additional one. I agree with the identification, given the other sign is tucked back in. And Doug, I'm trying to look at how our code describes it, and I think what we've talked about in the past is that this is unique because it has a two-pitched roof. And so I think the reason that you're saying it doesn't necessarily line up is because it's above that other pitched roof. Did we just maybe?
You're just too much.
I think we're still on.
Okay, we're still live. We just lost a camera here. That's why we all thought we lost you. But I think it's because of the dual pitched. And if we weren't counting that first pitched roof, which I think we could call not part of the main structure, then I don't think we're going necessarily against the code. So however we want to word that into finding a fact, I don't know if we can call this entryway something different than the main building, but I think that might be a way that we can fit it in here without going against the way we've described it in our code. Because what we don't want is signs that stick out above the roof of a building. And I think that would be the best and cleanest way.
Okay.
Other than that, it looks great.
Okay. Brendan?
Okay, so I echo Chris of just getting used to any kind of new branding. I think that'll be common for a lot of community members. It'll also be tough losing Monona in the name, but excited for this merger that happened. Concerning the page about the sign at the ridge, your night view, I would suggest updating that drawing to reflect that the sign below is also still illuminated in the night view, right?
Yes,
think
I
it's
agree with
showing
you.
your isolation, just so that that's a little bit more accurate in its depiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the color is important. The lumens, the foot candles, I think, is equally as important. If we're talking about blinding folks, especially the one that's on that ridge, that'd be important to have that information. In general, it's like for like. I don't have any other comments.
Okay. Great. So with that, do I have a motion as it relates to this proposal?
I will move approval with the recommendations by staff and including the finding of fact that wall sign 4 is not above the lowest edge of the roof, that the structure, the peak structure below this sign is not a part of the main building, but an entryway. And you can craft that the smoothest way you want.
And would that be to condition 2? Would it be sort of a
Sure.
rewording of that?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Or is it a finding of fact?
I'm sorry, I meant to say finding of
Okay.
fact.
And is there, sorry, before we ask for a second, is there something else related to maybe staff approval of the temperature or light temperature or lumens?
Yeah, staff approval for color temperature as well as lumens or intensity.
Okay,
If
so I
there
have,
are any concerns, they can return here, the normal.
okay, so I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I have a second over here. Any other? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move to consideration of action on Banana Bank. Public hearing request by Lake Ridge Bank, represented by Sign Art Studio for approval of new signage at the 6430 Bridge Road. Case number S-021-2022. Is there any, go ahead, we've lost our camera again, but we know that you're still there, so go ahead and give us an overview, if you would, of the property on Bridge Road.
Yeah, absolutely. So for Bridge Road, we are proposing 2 illuminated wall signs. The first one, labeled WLI-1, has illuminated letters mounted to a raceway, and then a raceway mounted logo that's located on the south elevation. This is a like-for-like replacement of existing signage, just update to the branding. The second illuminated wall sign is WLI-2. That is mounted on the west elevation. It's again a replacement for an existing illuminated sign, channel letters on raceways for all illuminated or proposed illuminated signs. We're proposing 2 directional signs. One is they're both non-lit post and panel signs under 4 square feet with graphics applied. The locations are, for the GDN1, that is a location that is a like-for-like replacement as well. For the GDN-2, this would be an addition to the property in the parking lot on the north elevation. Outside of that, we are also proposing a ground sign. Now, this one is going to be a removal of the existing ground sign, which is a masonry structure with 2 cabinets on it. We are proposing to remove that and then install a new ground structure. This would be a brand new masonry base with an illuminated cabinet, the same ACM wood aesthetic that's across all of their branding, with illuminated cabinets mounted to it. This would have a halo effect, much like the other proposed signage would. I understand from feedback with Thor that there are areas of that land that we need to avoid due to property lines, and I believe certain other aspects that are involved in the land area. So we will adhere to that, and I will make sure I get the confirmation and clarification on that, because we are proposing it in a different location. It's still nearby the existing sign. We're just shifting it, and as opposed to having it as a slant, we are going to make it vertical. So that's really the big changes there. And that is a complete sign package.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll close public hearing and go to consideration of action on the request by Lake Ridge Bank, represented by Sign Art Studio, for approval of new signage at 6430 Bridge Road, case number S-201-2022.
Thank you. The request here being a new signage package. The property is zoned as part of the Community Design District, CDD, and those standards would apply to the building. The wall signage, the 2 wall signs on the southern facade would be a net decrease in signage from the existing condition. Additionally, wall sign 2 would also be a decrease of about 12 or 13 square feet. Although the combined size of wall sign 1 between the logo and the lettering would exceed the allowable size for the southern facade length, the total cumulative sign meets city standards at 150 square feet exactly, and the existing signs were also approved and granted an exception in July of 2017. In terms of the landscape ground sign, this would be set approximately 45 feet away from the curb face, would be outside of the vision triangle. It would be, as proposed, 6 feet tall, which would be a foot taller than city standards would typically allow. That is comprised of a just over 2 foot base with just under 4 foot sign. And so again, it exceeds that by 1 foot, but would be comparable to the adjacent landscape ground signs. The one over at the Current was granted, and that is 7 feet tall. And the Avid sign closest to this property is also 6 feet in height. Just worth mentioning, as the applicant did there, that there are some challenges with the property line, and so just making sure staff's recommendation would be that this be located completely on private property, as would be typical for the signage applications, and so that is included as a recommended condition of approval. Of note as well, the current landscape ground sign does include a community message board element as well. This is covered in the staff report, but in discussion with internally with city staff, the interim administrator, director of administrative services, and the mayor, it was agreed that the board was no longer needed and did approve for its removal. The sign, a little bit of background, the sign did, as I understand, stop operating during COVID. There were some technical challenges with it, so I think it's been not used for about 2 years at this point now. There was some discussion as to the function and the operations of this. There would be an ongoing maintenance cost that would be, or an ongoing operational cost that would be needed to maintain a sign of this type with some message readers, in addition to, of course, the cost of fixing or updating the sign as well. So they sort of all played into the decision, as I understand it, and at this point, that type of sign was just not deemed necessary by the city. So I just wanted to provide that feedback. In terms of the directional signage, there are 2 of these that are proposed, and they both meet the requirements. Again, they help with wayfinding at the 2 entry points within the site. With that, staff recommendation is approval with 2 findings of fact and the 4 conditions of approval as laid out in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say, I like that community board. It's operating, and not to mention the fact that we also lost one at the other, the one at the corner of
Broadway and Monona Drive,
by
yeah.
the Quick Trip.
Yep.
So,
Well, that one never existed.
well, yeah, I know, but it was supposed to be.
Yes.
So, in any case, with that, Brian, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Overall, I like the package. I also had that same concern regarding the message board, because initially those 2 message boards were kind of part of this bigger overall plan of those were seen as the 2 entry points into the city, although we were trying to push everybody to the entry to the city up Monona Drive rather than cutting through Bridge. But we knew that those were the 2 key places. Because the one on the Drive and Broadway did not move forward because of location and other jurisdictions not allowing it. This one, if I remember correctly, it was a static message, and if there was a change that was needed, it was actually a change that you had to go out to make the change. It wasn't something that you could do from City Hall or elsewhere. And because of the need for replacement of it and the additional costs, I just don't see it happening. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the increased height of the additional foot, especially when we've granted that exception for the 2 properties just to the east of this property. And given the size and location of it, I think it's appropriate.
I would echo about.
I was just going to say, we don't have a landscaping plan for that ground sign. Given this is going to be a removal of one and then the addition of one, I know the bank takes great pride in their landscape and upkeep, and I'd be okay if that was approved at a staff level for an addition. That's it.
Thank you.
I agree about the landscaping. I also agree about the community sign. It was first thing that kind of endeared me to Monona Bank as well. It was like a real sense of community connection. But I understand for practical considerations, the loss of it, maybe we can find some other way to. They were really endearing things with the city. Other than that, the sign package, like for like replacement, I really like the warm wood of the signs. Yeah, I think it'll look really good when it's done.
Okay. First one?
I like the sign package. Everything looks good to me. I will echo the feelings about losing the community sign. I have no other concerns.
Okay. Corey?
Well, the community sign is a nice thing. If it doesn't work, I think it's good to take it down, because otherwise it just looks like we don't take care of our signs. So,
Yeah.
but I thought it looked great. I think these are going to look really sharp.
Okay. With that, I'll take a motion. Anybody want to make a motion?
I will move approval with the findings of fact as written by staff, and then the conditions of approval written by staff, and add a 5th condition for landscaping plan to be approved by staff. Or do we just amend 3? Yeah, it's already in there. It's already in there. So, okay.
Just the 4.
Yeah, just the 4, because it's already in there.
Great.
Okay, great. Do I have a second?
I can second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
This is Paul Hoffman from the bank. Really appreciate it. And we'll do a great job with the landscape side, too. We take really a lot of pride in that. So we're excited to hire. Hay will give us a little bit more ability to put some more landscaping down below. So thanks, you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, we will move to 8, reports of staff and commission members.
Thank you. As far as economic development update, just wanted to let the Commission know that the negotiations are ongoing with the Bloom regarding the potential TIF, and so that, depending how, there's still some back and forth going on, but I'm expecting that at an upcoming City Council meeting, all being well. As far as the upcoming Plan Commission items, the next meeting will be January 23rd, so I'm actually having to look at my notes and see what's coming forward. I'm expecting the White Horse property, the private drive, to be coming forward at that meeting. The plan for that is to have that reviewed by the city's consulting engineer, the engineer that typically handles road construction and public works projects, most likely in advance of the meeting, and to have that potentially be a consideration meeting for that item, so that the other elements can potentially continue to move forward with that as well. So that is expected. I'm also expecting a pre-hearing on the PIP for the Bloom in terms of some of the elements that were discussed, some of the design elements. So it would not be a formal consideration, but just a continuation of that discussion, more of an incremental discussion for that. And then most likely some elements regarding the property over at 5105 Monona, the multifamily redevelopment project. That most likely will also be coming through for, again, some more incremental discussion of that project and consideration of the rezoning as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Updates on discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Nothing for staff.
I think there's anything else. Oh, I know. You may or may not be aware that after the report on from the ad hoc committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion, has been the focus of that committee has been, or essentially that committee is being reconstituted with a slightly different name, some of the same members, to be an implementation committee to take that report and help the city prioritize the actions that were recommended in that report. And the mayor's gotten some terrific applications from residents to constitute that new implementation committee, so that'll be coming forward soon from the city council. Updates, discussion on sustainability.
Nothing for
I would just report there that Brad Brun, who's with the Public Works Department, reported out today, which will be coming out in the city's e-newsletter, that you may not be familiar with a state program known as SaltWise. It's all about making sure that we don't oversalt our roads, which means oversalting with runoff into our lakes. And pleased to say that all the staff members over at Public Works that are responsible for managing our salt use over the course of the winter have all gone through training and certified as SaltWise purveyors in our streets. And so doesn't apply, to Monona or Broadway because those are county specific roads, but certainly as it relates to the streets in Monona, our Public Works staff members will continue to do a fantastic job, as you know they all do. When I drive in Monona as opposed to going anywhere else in the area, particularly this time of year, I'm particularly appreciative of the work that our Public Works folks do. So anything else? You've already mentioned the upcoming meetings. Any Plan Commission requests for information from city staff? Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions. So first of all, echoing your comment, I had a friend who lives in Madison come and visit the day that it snowed, and she said getting out of her neighborhood was not great, and she got into Monona, and it was wonderful. So that's a good thing. But I like the 6 o'clock start time. I don't know how others feel about that, but I don't know if that's a consideration that the commission could have a discussion about. Not necessarily today, but just I like it. So I was wondering how others felt about it.
I like it. I like what Doug said earlier, like when it's, you got to get here at 6, it's like, now that it's 7:15, we're all happy.
Right.
But I had dinner at 4:30 tonight, so it's a little weird, but I'm glad we switched to 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good so far.
Yeah, I think so too. I certainly have to remind myself occasionally, but because, like you said, it is earlier, and when it's dark out, which we're about to turn the corner.
I know.
Next week we get to turn the corner.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
I heard that MESBA doesn't have an executive director. Is that something is there going to be movement there? Has the city heard anything about that?
I know that they're looking for a new executive director, and to the best of my knowledge, they have not found anyone yet.
I was on their website this week, I guess it's Monday, last week, and I mean, the stuff on there is still from August.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They obviously are short-staffed, and obviously it's a private organization.
Right.
But as I said, I know that they've been searching. They just haven't found anyone yet.
Go for it.
Feel free.
Nope.
Anything else? Terrific. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
You were teasing us. You were saying that these meetings.